Hello guys, I hope everything is well. Let's talk about the back bridge and why we should do it. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking, well, I'm too old, I'm too stiff, I can't move like that, I'm fine the way I am. Here's the thing, in Capoeira, it's not a perfect system in the sense that we tend to do a lot of the same movement patterns. Now I know we all love Capoeira, but like anything, we have to know where our weaknesses lie in what we do. And the thing with Capoeira is if you analyze the movement patterns, you'll find yourself pushing a lot more than pulling. So what I mean by pushing, if we look at our upper body, I'm using my arm, I'm pushing against the ground when I'm doing a role. I'm pushing against the ground over my head if I'm doing an AU or some kind of acrobatics. I rarely pull something. I might pull in a takedown, but that's rarely the case. It's not something that happens often in training or in a roda situation. With the lower body, it's very similar as well. We're often in our squat position or lunge position in the ginga, and even push a lot when we do our kicks, right? It's always that pushing. It's very rare that we find ourselves pulling something, both with the upper body and with our lower body. So we're going to look at how to remedy that, because we have to think about balance. If I do too many things that are with my frontal chain versus my posterior chain, I could weaken myself, and furthermore, I could be using muscles that are not meant to do what they're supposed to do. For example, I can get a lot of power from my glutes, but if I'm always using my quadricep muscles or my hip flexors to do that pushing with my legs, I'm not going to be as strong. So the back bridge is a great exercise to remedy that, at least with the lower body. We could get our glutes engaged, and then we can become a lot stronger. But here's the thing that we need to think about. The thicker we are, the bigger our bone structure is, the more that we have to be careful. The taller people are going to have a little bit more difficulty in the sense that they'll need to progress a little bit slower. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, right? If we have thicker vertebrae like this, we can't expect them to extend as much. And as we know, we want to make sure that when we're doing the movement, we're doing it well. We're extending where we need to, and we're mobilizing where we need to. So let's look at a bridge. Now, the ideal bridge here is not everybody is going to be able to do this in the game, and not everybody should, but let's analyze it for a second. I have my hip extension. So in this case here, the player is extending the body using their glute muscles. So really focusing on squeezing those glutes by keeping the elbows extended. For those that have the shoulder mobility, we can increase that range of motion in our shoulders, so being able to do other types of acrobatics. And here we can see clearly that the bend is not at the lumbar. If you notice here, my lumbar spine stays neutral, so the vertebrae are aligned, and it's all in my thoracics. So my thoracic spine is much smaller here, is much better suited for movement versus my lumbar. Some players have the tendency to bend in their lumbar, which is a bad habit. At first, if you're younger, a little bit more agile, you can get away with it, but as age creeps up on you, or even weight, for example, it will cause damage. So we have to be careful with how we do our bridge. Now, this is what I'm talking about. This person here is able to maintain shoulder flexion with minimum bend in the elbows, but the extension where they're getting is all in the lower back, the lumbar. So it's great. This might look very pretty in a game, but for the long run, it is going to cost a lot. If we go a little bit in the middle, we're able to lift up our hips neutral lumbar spine, which is great, and a little bit of extension in the thoracic, which we could see is causing a little bit of issues. And then the shoulder mobility is also limited. Now, this is not a bad place to start. If you're capable of doing something like this, I would say good on you. Continue working that posture and breathe through it. A good way to progress would be simply to elevate something off the ground so that your feet are a little bit higher. You can get that hip extension. That thoracic is a little bit limited, but then that shoulder mobility could be worked very easy here, right? Another way to progress is simply starting with a back bridge. So if all of these back bending motions are not for you yet, please start with something as simple as this. This can go a long way for your game. It can help make more of a neutral pelvis to give your lumbar spine more of a neutral state. And then you could progress with something like this, where you're just going into shoulder flexion with hip extension. A nice simple way to progress and to make yourself a lot better as a player. So what I want you guys just to think about here is the back bridge or the ponte is a great exercise. If you're not going to use it in your game, which is totally fine, think about using it as a warm-up exercise, as a cool-down exercise. Just once in a while, if you're going at the gym, do some versions of the back bridge so that you can see the progression. Start by mobilizing your thoracic spine. Nice and easy. Use a foam roller. Then you can progress from side to side by targeting your lats. As you get more and more comfortable, you can up the drills a little bit, target more of those hip flexors, trying to get that hip into extension, progressing slowly into back bridges, only focusing on the glutes. Afterwards, we can target a higher level bridge with the hands behind ourselves, extending the hips and flexing extending the shoulders as well. In that case, you can get a nice bridge. You breathe through it, you hold it. And afterwards, we can either progress with something at the feet and trying to extend those elbows as much as we can into a bridge. As I mentioned before, if the final product is not for you, which is totally fine, think of the first steps. Think of mobilizing your thoracic spine, mobilizing your shoulders, and really firing up that glute into a stability type stance where you can breathe through it, hold it for a few seconds. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it shed a light on what the back bridge really gives you. It's not just a fancy movement, but it has a lot to offer. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know, and thank you for watching.